Question from Gita Nanda. What is the purpose to focus on consciousness? Is that the question?
No, it keeps going. There's a number of questions in there.
When regardless of what you say, you're so-called purposive, your true actions are what you are sharing with everyone around you, and the only impact on the collective you are having. So rather than making statements of what you are focusing on, should we not just focus on our actions? And those actions are all the really matter, all that really matter. And those actions are speaking your true purpose, regardless of what you say. If you make negative statements, are you not bringing negativity into the collective? If you have an opinion about another, are you not projecting outward the opinion into the collective? For example, if I make a statement that New Dharma should do something, or I don't agree with what they're doing, am I just trying to impose my opinion on another and get their agreement? Even though I'm not communicating with New Dharma, it's just my opinion. Is that not just putting that negative into the community and the collective? Finally, when people speak of the underworld, the dark forces, and different dimensions, is all this just a distraction to truly experiencing life in this physical form and provide a big distraction to the true experiencing of living life fully? Okay? Yeah, lots.
So I have a response that I wrote last night because it was a rich inquiry, because it really gets down to how our actions, it gets down. So what he said is, yes, the proof is in the pudding. The action, the intent, the organization of the person, the being or the ego that's behind that, these are all in that action. And there are two modalities of that action. One is aligned with the conditioning that we swim in, the ocean of the collective condition we swim in. And the other is aligned with the possibility we bring when we're awake to ourselves as consciousness, when we are self-aware. That means, self-aware means you know you're conscious. So the key point of that quality that we carry is where the otherwise evidence takes on a new impact. It has a causal force behind it that's beyond what would be the perpetuation of our usual habitual egoic actions that are shaped by the conditioning and the collective condition of humanity that we may be in at any one moment and are continuously perpetuating unwittingly. So the nature of consciousness is to wake up. When we become conscious, then our actions can be something other than a perpetuation of the past and the recreation of the past into the present and that past and the present into the future. So it is the path to freedom. Otherwise, it's the path to what it's always been, which is bondage and ignorance and the unwitting being puppets of the string of forces that we're unaware of. So without consciousness, the actions that are occurring do not have any relevance. They will simply be one more expression in a different form, in a different time, showing up once again. Remember, we don't live long enough to be able to gather all the wisdoms of all who have lived before us and actually learn to live aligned with those. So we forget, we lose track, we get distracted. So therefore, even when we are awake, we slip right back into the condition that we're all in. So there are some markers about this. Action is the proof of the pudding. Action is going to come to either the manifestation of a possibility for that which has not yet been manifest, or a perpetuation for a series of effects and causes that are already in place. But how to act is one of the key principles here. We have to be conscious. So what do we become conscious of? We become conscious of our motives. We become conscious of our agendas. Especially when we find ourselves in the modalities of our habitual ego, our negativity, our resentment, our overwhelm, then we can tell that any actions we take are likely to be an expression of something that's emerging to create space for a greater consciousness, or a perpetuation of that which has kept us unconscious. It's that simple. So you could just say, everything I teach is about action, ultimately. It's about the body, because without the body, you don't really have action in this dimension. And there's no other dimension where it matters. Every other dimension, other than the physical dimension, doesn't have the degree of effects and cause as it does here. It is here that we actually, where the Supreme wakes up through us, through our ignorance and our misery and our bondage and our perpetuation of that as the unwitting puppets of forces beyond ourselves. So that's our predicament. How do you answer this more fully than that? Let me see. I did respond. If we can rest in ourselves as self-aware beings, then we discover the truth that we are fundamentally the stuff of consciousness. It's actually a demystified understanding of the truth of your own self-awareness. It's a quality that has a potentiality, a static and dynamic expression. And that dynamic expression is consciousness coming into existence. We are that, even though what we're expressing is conditioned by the vehicle we're inhabiting. So recognizing that everything is consciousness, every thought, every feeling, every sensation, everything that has happened or is happening or will happen is an expression of consciousness. Everything that we see in right now as we look out into the world, all the colors and the shape and the forms and the solidity and the history we have with all of these gives an apparent reality, but what's behind it is an energetic principle of consciousness. And then behind that, or in front of that, as part of the manifestation, are all the sub-particles of the wave of consciousness coming into precipitous form to manifest and express. So we ride those waves. We are those waves. Each of these, we act out in the course of our lived life, consciously or unconsciously. To clear the territory is the most actually momentous event that can happen. When you take a stand and say, I stop, I refuse to perpetuate the ignorance, and you rest in that place long enough, a space opens up, if you can endure it, because everything you think you are doesn't want to be there. Everything you are used to isn't able to be with stopping. What stops? Who declares enough? Who sets the thing, I stop perpetuating the error that I've inherited and taken on and made mine? It's only from this place that we can begin to claim the territory, where then our actions are actually creative events. They are bringing into this paradigm a possibility of a new way to be, a new way to act, a new way to live. If we haven't mastered stopping, then we're not going to be good at going. It's going to be just simply a perpetuation of various degrees to the extent of our own ability to rest in that silent, still presence, conscious of itself, being silent and still as that presence. To the extent you have access to that, and for each of you it will show up different. For some it'll be in the awareness, it'll be in a quality of force. For some of you it'll be a feeling of connection, of oneness, although that itself is not the full stop, but it is in the vicinity of the full stop. And proportional to our ability to be in the full stop, to be in the Sat stop, is where the miracle of our action makes a difference. Because something comes through. It was always meant for the human body to eventually be able to behold the supreme, the perfection of a supreme being who could come in and speak and act that in ways that would create a new possibility for mankind as a demonstration, first one-on-one, and then multiples communicating and learning how to act from that place of stop. Because from that place of stop also comes the original imperative, the original go, the original purpose, the original dharma. When we stop, then act, it is the freshest expression of that quality that we are as pure consciousness. So learning to act from that place is everything we do. Learning to find what in us that won't stop is the beginning of learning how to stop. But what gives us the strength and the capacity is a growing in that very essential quality of what we are as consciousness. Until then, guaranteed. Here in New Dharma, here in the residential program, here wherever you live, it is going to be the ocean of the error. It's going to be the ocean of the cause and effect and the duality and the play of the opposites and the gunas, and it's all going to be doing what it does. Even the imagined freedom within this. I am free because I get to do exactly what my impulses and my programming want me to be able to do and not feel responsible or obligated. You're bound. You're bound because it's just a cycle, it's just a passing event. Just like our lives are passing events. Everything in this domain cannot hold because it's always in movement. The only thing that holds is when it stops. And that's always. Of course, the movement's always. Prakriti will never end, just like the Purusha will never end. Two dynamic expressions of the one principle. And here I sense, Gitananda, is something of a, how come I can't just do the action? How come, do I really need to know all this shit? Can I just do the action? Yeah, of course you can keep doing the action. If you do the action and you're in service of a purpose, then that action serves the purpose. It brings that purpose into your life. It makes it real. So if we're just doing the action, then be simple. Dedicate your life to divine, and everything that arises will be an expression of that purpose. You don't need me. You don't need questions and answers. You don't need this program if you've got that, because that is how it really gets down to, the simple of simple. But the body doesn't know how to do that for very long. The emotional body doesn't know how to do this for very long. And the mind has no idea how to do that. It has its own versions of those ideas. To be simple in action will bring a sense of purpose, a sense of aliveness, a sense of connection, a sense of willingness to meet that which is in the way of that purpose manifesting. So there's two sides. There's the simple and the complex. They both exist. Holding both those in your consciousness is the art, is the mastery of being able to embody what it means to create a new possibility as a human being for the world. So I like these broad questions like this. Of course, you say, well, how can I convert this into something practical? So it was a little broad, but the fact is that's the predicament. Make your life an act of service, and whatever you do will serve that which you dedicate your service to. All negativity, thought or spoken, are expressions of the ego. all negativity are expressions of the ego or the collective condition. It's just, you can use that as your marker. If it's negative, if you experience as negative, it doesn't mean that it's negative. It means that your assessment of it is the negativity within you. The true place of presence, everything's included. If there's resistance or projections or expectations, then it's clearly being run by the conditioning. Then you're a puppet on a string, being pulled by your instincts and your programming and your addictions and your habits and your patterns. So negativity is your doorway to recognize, I am maybe not right about what I feel I'm so right about. Maybe I got it wrong, or there's a possibility I got it wrong. Maybe I can be suspicious of what I think is true. Then you've got something. You've got an entry point. These actions can only perpetuate ego, and with that we recreate ignorance and even perpetuate our own bondage, imagining it's freedom. They're perpetuating the error and making little or no difference and missing the opportunity of being here, but also of the truth of what it means to live a divine life. Truly, sound and fury signifying nothing. This is what ego is afraid of, that it doesn't matter. Worse yet, that in fact it doesn't have a valid existence. It's a temporary construct of movement that disappears when we stop. Negative and positive. But in any one situation, if you can catch the negative, then you're opening the doorway for a positive that comes from a different place than negative or positive. A potential for something new, real, now, to come into existence. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
A bit long.